Hello guys, once again it's Matt, and today we have another video. Thank you all the members, all the Patreons. Make sure to subscribe and let's get into it, guys. I did a video like this for the aircraft and top tier jets specifically, and now we're going to talk about tanks, which are the nations that are in the most dire need of new top tier tanks, and specifically which nation basically is in need for a rank 8 tank lineup, right? This can be a specific MBT, an AA system. We're going to discuss each country going through them. So I'm going to divide them into a tier list over here. In a dire need, basically nations that really need something in top tier. They might not have anything if they don't add a sub 3 or something like that, but still. Threes that have gaps that would be cool to see, but again, it could be a tree that doesn't even have anything to be added unless they add a sub tree, right? Could have something, could have X or Y here and there. It's not a bad tree right now, but it could have something, right? And then the well-served. Well-served would be nations that already have basically everything, right? And they don't need anything in top tier. So let's start with Germany. Germany is a controversial one because if I say it's in dire need, people will complain. If I say it's well served, people will complain. I gotta be honest with you guys, I don't think it's a bad country. It really is not. It could have something, yes. Maybe it could have a new version of a Leopard. Maybe should receive the best Leopard in the game since it's a German vehicle, right? So that I kind of agree with, but it's not like it's a nation that like it's lacking. Their tanks are really good, one of the best in the games. The only problem that I see that they are fixing, they added the PSO, and they are planning to add another Leopard 2, which is the number of spawns that you can have, right? Maybe with an addition of, I don't know, maybe a different EA system from other country or something like that. It would be very, very cool. So it could have something. It's not fully well served, I don't think, but it's not a bad tree as well. It has a lot of very good tanks, one of the best tech trees in the game, to be honest, right? Then we have China. China, I gotta be honest, it had big gaps, you know, it really did have big gaps. But to be honest, after they added even prototypes of new Type 99s and stuff like that, basically, it's pretty well served, you know. It has a very good AA system. Yes, the Tor have its limitations, but it is very, very good. And it can even have some other things, little things here and there, and prototypes and stuff like that. But in general, it is a very good tech tree. Like, if you're going to talk about performance itself, yes, there are nations that will have better tanks than China. But for what China can have, they already have basically the best of the best out there that they could receive, right? So it's a very well-served nation, in my opinion. It's a very fun nation in the top ranks because it's basically just modified Soviet-styled tanks, right? So, yeah, there's always something to be added, but right now it's a very well-served, quote-unquote, minor nation. Don't, like, use that as a personal offense, obviously, but minor nation is a nation that it's not the USSR, it's not the US, right? Nations that have smaller tech trees and stuff like that. So yeah. Then we have Italy. Italy, it's problematic. It's almost not in a dire need because the BR that their tanks are basically in general, it's pretty alright, you know. But the problem is Ariete isn't the most like performance-wise meta tank in the game. It's very good, it has an amazing ammunition and stuff, but it doesn't have a lot of armor, and that can be a deadly factor when you are facing Leopards and T-series of tanks, right? So I would say that Italy it's very good from what they could have, but maybe a sub tree would help them, and they already have one, but something maybe with a Leopard or something like that, there's not much to be added. That's the problem, right? So I would say that in the meta side of things, it's a nation that it's like it's not really fair to say it's in a dire need. I think it's too like it's a very good country, and the Arietes are very good if you know what you're doing. But I don't know, for the meta of the game that really favors the Leopards of the world and even the T series, right? I think the Ariete kind of lacks a little bit because it's an easy tank to kill because of the armor, right? So maybe adding, I don't know, a country that could have a Leopard to a 6 or something like that as a top tier. I don't know. I don't think like it's another whole nother thing. But I think the Arietes are very good, but they lack a little bit on the meta of Leopards and T series, right? Even though in the right hands they can be effective, I just have a feeling that Italy is one of those nations that doesn't have many things to be added anyway, right? And again, guys, don't take this as a personal offense. Sorry about the I hit the mic. Because I know there will be somebody, oh my god, in the comments, oh my god, the Italy is the best country in the game, what are you doing? I'm not talking about performance itself. I'm talking about the need of a rank 8 new tank that it's meta, right? The Ariete can be amazing, but it's not a very easy tank to have, you know, and the statistics show that the tanks are fine, but there are better nations to research, right? So it's problematic. The Japanese, I would say, also is kind of in that dire need, although they are fixing a little bit of that. It's even worse than Italy, I think. But the problem is that there isn't much to be added at all. You know, the Type 10 is the last MBT, and the Type 81 AA system is basically the last AA systems that they can have for now, right? So it's kind of problematic, but unless they add a sub-3, Japan will always kind of be in a dire need. You know, it's a country that already has everything that it's supposed to have. The number of vehicles that you can spawn in, it's kind of limited. You don't have a lot of good AA systems, so I think it's one of the nations that kind of suffers the most on that kind of line of thinking. As I said, sub-3s or prototypes being added could help with that, but I doubt that we will see something that will completely change Japan and Italy. You know, it's what they have, and there's nothing basically we can do, right? Sweden is one that it's well served as well. It's even better than China, I think, because it has basically two Leopards, 2A6s, right? Even more, technically, if you consider the other Leopards and stuff. It's basically bringing the best 2A6 in the game, the STRV 122B, I think it's called. So it is a very well-served nation. It has some gaps that maybe in lower ranks that can be filled, but in top tier, I think it's a very, very well-served nation. Not much we can talk about. The only reason why Germany is not here, to be honest, is because of the number of Leopards compared to Sweden, for example, because Germany is the original country where the Leopards come from, right? So I just think that they could receive like a 2A7 or something in the future, right? So yeah, the Soviet Union is another one. I think it's well served. It doesn't need anything. Yes, in the future it will probably have the T90M or something like that, something crazy like that. But to be honest, guys, it is like a nation that it's amazing at everything, right? It has one of the best castles in the game, one of the best AA systems, the best AA system in top tier. It has a wide variety of MBTs and light tanks they can use in top tier that are really, really amazing. They have their limitations, but even if they add something, it's just going to add for numbers because they are already well served, right? So I think it's the most well served nation in the game, to be honest, more than Sweden and China, in my opinion. Of course, this is all my opinion, right? The USA, I think it always can have something. I think it lacks on the number of Abrams because there isn't much they can actually do beyond that. Yes, the SEP V2 maybe, better versions of the Abrams, but it won't change the weak spots that the Abrams have. You know, the ammunition will probably be the same until we receive better ammunition for everybody, if we ever do that. So if we ever get that. So I don't know. Yes, there are gaps, not gaps, but I just think the sheer number of Abrams, like 11.7 Abrams, could be a little bit bigger with 1 or 2 Abrams in the futures being added, right? But everything else is pretty well served. One of the best AA systems in the game. Amazing light tanks, amazing MBTs if you know what you're doing. It's a little bit less you know, performance-wise, less meta than the Leopards, I think, and even the T-Series, because of the like huge weak spots that are the lower glacis of the Abrams, and just the way that the Abrams is. It's a very large tank, very easy to hit in weak spots and stuff. So it lacks a little bit on that. But overall, it's a very good nation. It's just that maybe having another Abrams would be cool to have a sheer number of tanks that you can actually spawn in, right? France is one of those nations that I would say, I mean, it always can have something as well, right? It always can. But there's not much that can be added anyway, right? The Leclercs are amazing. I really enjoyed them. People tend to hate them a little bit sometimes, but I really, really like the Leclercs. I think they are less problematic than like the Abrams and stuff, so it's a very good tank. You have a fairly good amount of them. There's always X or Y that can be added in the future, better ammunition, stuff like that. Minor things that will help these quote-unquote minor nation be a little bit better, right? But it's problematic. It's almost well served because there's nothing else that can be added, to be honest. Israel, I gotta say, you have gaps. On the MBT kind of side of things, there's not much they can add. Of course, there are newer versions, technically, of the Merkava Mark IV, but to be honest, the only problem that I see in the stack tree from what they can have is the AA systems, right? It basically doesn't have much, and especially in top tiers, it really lacks. Even with the Chaparral, obviously, it's a lower rank, and, you know, the Macbeth, and it's just, it lacks. AA systems are really the Achilles heel of Israeli, you know, tank tech tree, right? So, even though, yes, they have fairly good tanks, they can be very successful with their tanks. I think, you know, there's not much they can add in the sense of MBTs. But on AA systems, there is not much to be added as well, but there is a gap there that needs to be filled with something in the future. Maybe adding an US AA system like Canada or something to have a more like competitive AA system, but to be honest, there's not much they can actually do with that, right? And then we have, of course, the UK. The UK is another one that it has gaps, right? On the side of MBTs, they are complete. There's not much they can actually have, to be honest. Even though, yes, there is always a new version of a challenger that they can add. It's pretty much what it is, right? In the future, yes, they can add like Commonwealth tanks and stuff like that. But I think on the side of AA system, it's lacking a little bit as well compared to other nations. Again, it doesn't mean that it's a clear, obvious answer of what can be added, but there is a gap there. Just like Japan, I mean, these four nations over here, guys, they're not like bad nations. That's the thing. I just think that they're limited by their own kind of having stuff, right? Japan, Italy, there's not much that can be added anyway unless they add a subtree. Israelis without an AA system, yes, there's not much they can add besides something from another country. The UK is kind of like that as well, right? So all of these nations, they are well served with their own things, but their own things lack in certain aspects of the meta, which is AA systems for these two and heavy armored. So yeah, basically this is it. Let me know in the comments what you think about these, if you agree with me or not. Remember, this is only my personal opinion. You can always leave your own in the comments below. Of course, each player have its own personal opinion, so leave it in the comments. I see you guys on the next one. Make sure to subscribe, and bye guys, see you.